So what are extraordinary moments? They're the starting point of all great adventures. We all have them. Sometimes they're huge mega events. Sometimes they're fleeting things that pass by. Sometimes you can't even notice them until you look back years later and realize where it all started. But they're all life-changing moments. How many of you remember Live Aid? What a huge event. And that event itself transformed so many lives. It was an extraordinary moment for so many people, but not for Bob Geldof. His extraordinary moment happened one night sitting down watching TV with his family, and he saw a documentary about famine in Ethiopia. That simple event transformed the lives of millions of people. Has anybody here not seen the movie Sliding Doors? Anybody here not seen Sliding Doors? For those that haven't seen it, it's very, very simple. It's a story about a woman, and what we see is she tries to get onto a tube. We see two storylines. She got on the tube, she didn't get on the tube. Split-second difference, and what we see is her life unfold in totally different ways as that happens, and that's the interesting thing about extraordinary moments. We don't often know what's going to happen, but sometimes we do. Let me talk to you about this. 21st of June, 1993, that's the big moment for me. And you'll find it was a big moment for you. Just to put some background into it, I was the technology guru for the financial services industry. I wrote for nearly all the financial services press. I wrote about technology. I was passionate about it. My biggest client was a company called the Insurance Trading Exchange. They were responsible, they were financed by the insurance industry to build the electronic trading platform. But this is 1993. We're at the dawn of the internet. Most people didn't even know it was coming. It had only been invented 2 years previously. Now, what I did was I ran road shows all around the country for them. I spoke, I facilitated, I coached the speakers, trained the speakers, sorted out their slides. It was a big job, did all the press releases, everything for them. It was an absolutely huge job, a mammoth job. So we'd just come back from the personal investment management thing on QE2. Paul, the managing director, comes in. He says, "Can't believe it, Chevy's bloody resigned." Chevy's the marketing manager. He was furious. He looked at me days before I changed gender. He said, "Richard, fancy taking on the job as our marketing manager?" I said, "Are you serious? This was going to be a big job." I said, "I need to think about that." Trouble was, I was very heavily involved with the Institute of Sales and Marketing Management. They just negotiated deals to try and publish a book. I had a director of a small company where we sold software to salespeople. I was just really building and starting to get my speaking career off the ground. And I thought, if I take this job, it's really going to constrain me because I'm just going to have to get back into the business of being a director. And I said no. In 1998, the management team, including the new marketing manager, executed a management buyout. In 1999, they IPO'd for £400 million. Regrets? I've had a few. But I'm not sure I regret that one. And that's what I want to explain today. Sometimes what you think is the great opportunity actually wasn't. The 14th of July, 1995 was my next extraordinary moment. Now, there was no speaking business in the UK back then. There were lots and lots of people doing speaking, and mostly it was celebrities. Or we import loads of people from the States and from Australia. Every time I went to speak at a conference, it was always outsiders brought in. Where was the UK speaking industry? It was driving me nuts. I had friends with most of the people who were speakers, but we needed something else. I was talking to a friend at Toastmasters. He said, "Why don't you join the NSA?" Who? The NSA. It's a speaking thing in the States. They've got lots of tapes and books, and they do meetings. I thought, okay, I'll have a look. Ooh, that's expensive. But I thought, okay, I'll go for it. And I found that there were 6 members of the NSA in the UK, including my friend. So I phoned them up. They were all over the country, and I spoke to a guy called Alan Lord. He said, "Oh, yeah, it was really great. Are you going to the convention?" I said, "What?" they've got a convention, this big meeting. I said, where? It's in Minneapolis in July. So I threw in my money. I thought the Inland Revenue can wait. And off I flew to Minneapolis, Minnesota on the 14th of July, 1995. Now, it's not often, I'm sure you'll agree, that a meeting changes your life. Oh, but that did. How many of you have been to NSA, just as a matter of interest? So you'll know. That first NSA meeting, God, 2,500 speakers, 13 concurrent sessions. I'm sitting down at tables with Brian Tracy, there's Zig Ziglar, Cavett Robert. There's all these heroes of my speaking life sitting having a chat with me over lunch, telling me their greatest secrets. I could not believe it. Alan Law said, come on, let me introduce you. This is Fripp. Fripp's the first woman to be president of the NSA, but she's also a Brit. A hairdresser who went to San Francisco and decided rather than marry a millionaire, she'd become one. He said, have you met Mitchell? Who's Mitchell? I said, he's called Mitchell. It's W. Mitchell. He likes to be known as Mitchell. Come on, I'll introduce you. He reached out. I didn't know what to do. To shake his hand. A patchwork quilt of a man. He said, hey, Richard, come here, sit down. Told me a story about the motorcycle accident that set him into a ball of fire that burned so much of his body they had to get a picture and piece his face back together again in the hope that it was something like him. How he recovered from that, crashed an aeroplane and broke his back. And he said, but it's not what happens to you that matters, it's what you do about it. But Mitchell taught me something else because I was really uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to engage with somebody so badly burned. And what Mitchell showed me was that if you are different, you have to take responsibility for helping other people to be comfortable with you. And that's what he did. Absolutely amazing. So, back to the UK, I'm now a professional speaker. It had transformed me completely. Had to get something like this happening in the UK. I started talking to Alan Lord, the guy who got me there. He wanted to do something, but that sort of fizzled out. He decided to retire. So about a year later, we're still battling. I'm rattling on the doors of the speaking profession, of the Toastmasters, the people in the life insurance industry, people I knew. Just couldn't. I thought we'd set up an NSA chapter, but I needed 50 members. 18 months down the line, I hadn't got one person to join the NSA. I thought, it's just not going to work. Then, another extraordinary moment. Beginning of 1998, Brendan Power and a friend of his, Paul Jocelyn, went to the States for a meeting, and they ended up going to the NSA chapter in San Francisco. Blew them away. Brendan comes back and said, hey, we've got to do this, somebody else is going to do it. I said, okay, fine. I'd got to know a guy called Warren Evans. You may have already heard about Warren. His partner, Susan's here. Do you know, Warren's sadly no longer with us, but what an influence he had in getting this to happen. Warren was setting up the International Federation, now the Global Speaking Federation. He said, we want to get you in here. And he said, oh, by the way, there's some other guy there who wants to do it as well. I said, who? This guy called Rex Warner. Who's Rex Warner? Never heard of him. So we phoned, didn't get any response. Turns out Rex Warner is an explorer. Now, not just an explorer, he's a crazy explorer. He does these sort of events and trips that happened years and years ago just to prove it could have happened. And he sailed a raft across the North Pacific from China to America to prove the Chinese could have done it. Now, that wasn't the crazy thing. The fact that it was shark-infested water wasn't really that crazy. The fact that he can't even swim, that was. So we have a crazy explorer, Brendan, an ex-pirate radio station DJ, and an ex-Butlins redcoat, and we have a team. We're getting it together. And then I suddenly noticed in the list of NSA members, there's a new member. I thought, I know that name. I've even got a bootleg tape of one of his gigs. I've been trying to remember some of his jokes. He's not here today, but Graham Davis, man with a joke for every occasion, and because he's not here, we probably won't hear it tonight, but sorry, that was one of his jokes. So he said, I don't want to join your Politburo, but I will help on the background. So he helped us put all the legal stuff together because he's a barrister. And then Rex pulled in a guy called Martin Nichols. Now, Martin's sadly no longer with us. Martin, I have never seen anything like it. He can deliver a funny after-dinner speech, have the audience literally rolling in the aisles and not a flicker on his face. He was amazing. Also a very good treasurer. We needed somebody to do some of the writing and everything else. And I thought, who do I know? And then it struck me. I used to compete in all these Toastmaster competitions, and one person constantly beat me. God, it annoyed me. I phoned Philip Campani. I got halfway through telling him what we were doing. He said, I'm in. So we had somebody to do our marketing. A couple more people joined. Craig Hampton was from the NSA and was living here, wanted to help us along. Roz had worked for M&S. They unfortunately moved on fairly soon afterwards. And we did finally get a guy called Arthur Spencer Bolland. Arthur was our Sarah Beth at the time. He helped to do the administration. We were ready to go, and we were scheduled to go and launch the PSA in October 1998. Sadly, we missed it. We were a little bit. We'd actually postponed it till January 1999. But this is the 20th anniversary of the PSA. Woo! But it's all about a team. It's had a rocky road, it's had some ups and downs, and I am so thankful to the 18 presidents. I know it's only 18 presidents because I did 18 months and Brenda did 18 months. I think we've had about 18 or 19 presidents who've actually steered it through that difficult course. And we nearly lost it a few times along the way, but here we are, stronger, better, and we have a speaking industry. And the interesting thing is, as a result of that, just think about how many people have been influenced and changed because of that. I reckon we're talking millions, aren't we? All the audiences that people who've joined the PSA have influenced. You add those up together, wow, what an impact we have had. But 1999 was always going to be a big year for me. My life goes in 7-year cycles. I have no idea why, but when I look at it, that's what seems to happen. So 1999, not only was it the end of the century, the end of the millennium, it was the end of the 7th cycle of 7 years of my life. So we started with the PSA. The exchange had IPO'd and got all their millions. And you remember that thing about not paying the tax? The Inland Revenue caught up with me. And they busted me badly. I had to sell my house. I had to get rid of all my savings. My relationship fell apart. I discovered the exchange was now, all the directors had now lost their mojo. They really weren't interested. They had their millions, so it all sort of lost its energy. It was going to shut down. And so I had to clean up. I ended up suddenly finding at the end, I didn't dare go bankrupt. I thought, I'm president of the PSA. If I do it, it'll affect the whole of the PSA. So I had to find the money, and I did. But, oh, God, that was a mess. But let me put some background to what happened next. When I was 6 years old, here's me at 6, my parents took me to see a child psychiatrist. It wasn't their idea. The school had noticed that I didn't seem to get on with other kids the same age. The child psychiatrist said, oh, he's 2 years ahead of his age mentally, so put him up a year. So that was what happened for a while. But actually, it wasn't really it. I wasn't aware of this. It wasn't until I looked back and realized that they'd spotted, see, then, 1950s, boys and girls were desperately segregated, separate entrances into the school, lined up. It was all very separated. So what they'd spotted was, I didn't get on with boys very well. If you assess girls against boys at that age, you'll find girls are about 2 years ahead mentally. Boys catch up at puberty, which slows girls down. That's just the way that it is. About a couple of years later, I started to feel these real senses that I should have been a girl. I couldn't figure it out. Didn't understand it. We're talking at a time when homosexuality is illegal. Any boy expressing femininity, oh, God. And then at school, something happened that really was a defining moment for me. A young kid, part of a really big family. He was the middle child of about 11 kids. And as a consequence of that, he always got hand-me-down clothes when you're in a big family. Trouble was most of his older siblings were sisters. So he'd arrived in, one day he's getting changed. We're going to go and do some cross-country running. As he's getting changed, one of the kids noticed he's wearing girls' knickers. Within seconds, like a scene out of Lord of the Flies, they were on him, jeering and making this kid feel awful. I was terrified. On the one hand, I'm jealous but he gets to wear his sister's clothes. On the other hand, I knew this had to be my biggest secret. No one could ever know. I couldn't handle that level of humiliation, degradation. It was just absolutely awful. So that was it. Nobody ever got to know. For 15 years, I held it as a secret. Couldn't be me, couldn't really work hard on it. I did tell my partner just before we got married. She was okay with it as long as nobody else knew. So again, it was keep it secret. So the whole thing, it was 43 years before I finally managed to get to come out. 43 years, that really was the toughest time that I can imagine. Forward to 2001, Dallas, NSA convention. I was at the convention. Warren Evans was running at this stage these, basically what were the start of the global speakers meetings at the first day of the NSA convention. And I got the chance to sit in front of this whole bunch of really, really good speakers and ask one question, and I had 5 minutes of answers from top speakers. My question was simple. I said, in the UK, it's dominated by celebrity speakers. What do I need to do to become a celebrity? Well, there were lots and lots of good ideas came out, and then somebody suddenly then said, Richard, being a celebrity means being celebrated for something. What do you want to be celebrated for? Whoa, I thought, what a good question. That year was Chris Clark Epstein's convention. Her whole theme for the convention was good questions. And here we were, right before it started. I've got my first good question. By the time I got home, I've still got this on my head. I'm driving back up the house. I thought, what do I want to be celebrated for? Now, I don't know where this came from. It wasn't my voice, but there was nobody else in the car. And suddenly I heard a voice say, be celebrated for being transgender. I said, you're kidding. That's actually not what I said, but this is being recorded. I can't do that. It would destroy my career. Nobody would want to. I thought, I can't do this. I started talking to some other people. I started talking to people at the exchange who I was still working. They were just, still there. We're going to have the last party. And I thought, well, I've got to do something. So I'd spoken to somebody about this and about the way the whole thing was going to be going on. December the 14th was the last party. It was always a big fancy dress party. I thought, I'll do drag. I'll go there completely in drag, and that'll sort of be a gentle coming out. Oh, no, we're going to do black tie this year because it's the last one. All right, I said, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to come to the event, and I'm going to just come out big time. Well, you got to remember, they're used to seeing me. This was me doing my conference speeches for them all around the country. I turn up at the last party, slightly differently dressed. You could hear the jaws hit the floor. What was actually worse was when I actually said, I'm going to go and get changed, this is a bit too hot, and I came back in another off-the-shoulder evening dress, and they suddenly thought, oh, God, it's not just suddenly they got it. People were stepping back. I have actually enjoyed being transgender. It has actually been fun, and a huge amount has happened. This, for those of you that remember, was London chapter. And we held a London chapter meeting at Speaker's Corner. I don't know what it was. People were having small audiences. Suddenly I get up and start to speak. The buzz got round. There's a tranny! Everybody rushed in. I thought I knew where I was. I had about 150, 200 people, and they're heckling me. So I'm that, oh, God, what an amazing time. But sadly, it wasn't all good. 6 months after coming out, and actually it was June 2002, when I finally said, that's it, I'm going to live as a woman. And within 6 months, I had absolutely no work at all. Little dregs and bits and pieces that were coming through, even they said, oh, we had so much pressure not to book you. It's about fear. Terrified that if they book this trans person and it doesn't go well, then they'll be the laughing stock. And it all fell apart. I thought, nobody wants to book me because I'm transgender, so what do I have to do so that they will book me because I'm transgender? And the answer was, go to university, do a master's degree in gender research, become an expert in a new field. Let me tell you, it takes about 5 years to build a new expertise. Get involved in all the things that you need to do, but that's what I did. Now, I became a bit of an activist. I had to. I had to battle with this. The laws were changing, but people's attitudes needed changing as well. And so I've run all sorts of things. I've delivered everything on trans awareness training. That's been my business, and I have loved doing it. But still, we're having awful battles. We've got a battle at the moment going on with basically radical feminists who really would like to remove trans people from the face of the earth. I think, look, judging by the horrible tweets, I've got a TED Talk. You should read some of the comments that I have to put up with them now. I tend now to know if people are going to troll you, just ignore it. It's the only thing to do, because if you engage, you give them the platform to have a battle. If you just ignore it, it disappears. Within a day, nobody even knows it was there. But the moment you engage, you create a shitstorm. It's all over the place. So you have to do that. So when Tiff asked me to do this today, what you're going to understand is there are now 4 that I know of, 4 trans people who are members of the PSA. At least 2 members have trans children. So it's not something that's just sort of, in the corners anymore. Now we're out there, we're in public, we're facing people, and you've got to know that we are there. But what is gender? Everybody gets confused with this. Gender's not the same as sex, completely different. Sex first is about bonking, but that's a different matter. I do a whole workshop session on that one. But sex is also about it's about your biology, isn't it? So what I want to do tonight is a little bit of understanding to help you understand what this thing is all about, because I don't think most people get it. They know some trans people, they don't understand why. We don't know why people are trans. We think it's something to do with too much testosterone or too little testosterone in the womb during fetal development. But there are so many people who want to argue that one because it's a big political issue. This is the thing you need to look at. Some people say you can't use slides with lots and lots of bullets. Yeah, you can. It's about language, it's about culture, it's about education, it's about the roles in life, it's about the jobs you have, the clothing, your appearance. It affects your behavior, your expectations. Your whole place in life is determined by gender. Gender is the way society treats you because they perceive you to be one sex or the other. That's simply what it's about. It's about a societal response. It is not about who you are. And that's what we're not getting, and it's the pressure. The reason trans people have a problem is not because they have a problem with themselves, it's because other people have a problem with people being trans. I had no idea that it is not safe for a woman to walk down a dark street at 11 o'clock at night on her own. I had no idea that it is not safe for a woman to walk down a street full of bars at 11 o'clock at night. I didn't know that people would come out and say, "Hello, darling, let me walk you home," and pester you until you could get rid of them. I had no idea people would walk out and say, "Excuse me, you have very nice breasts. I would like to go to bed with you." And people said, "Oh, welcome to womanhood. It's the way it is." I saw women being discriminated against. I saw all these things. I thought, this is crazy. It's about a silly societal way in which we differentiate between men and women in ways which is totally and completely unnecessary and unrelated. Let me just take this. This is a model. This picture's been around for years and years and years. A guy called Sam Killerman has done a huge amount of work with it. It's pronounced metrosexual, but he's left it and said, look, anybody can have it. It's uncopyrighted. You use it. We want to get the message out. And I thought, great, what a great idea. Think about it. Sex. Most people born male, female, we know what it is. Not everybody, about 1 in every 100, not quite sure. They get a really bad deal. A sexual attraction. We don't know the numbers, but around 3 to 6 in every 100 aren't attracted to opposite sex. They're attracted to the same sex or both. We've got gender identity. Gender identity is that sense of self. And this is where we think everything goes wrong for trans people. Somehow the brain thinks it's female while the body looks to be male, or vice versa. We don't know quite what causes it, but what I do know is you can't fix it. All you can do is learn to cope with it, and that's really what it's about. And finally, the only thing you see is how I express myself. Everything else is hidden. You don't see my genitals. You don't see who I am attracted to. You don't see how I feel about myself. You simply see how I express myself. Is that such an issue? Why does how I express myself have to cause so much challenge? The thing also to notice is it's not about some spectrum with male at one end and female at the other. It's about having both. We all have estrogen. We all have testosterone. It's just the balance that's different. And you can vary that balance with a few pills. We have bodies. We can change those with a little bit of surgery if you want to. But I want to look at the numbers of that. 500,000 trans people estimated in the UK alone. But let me tell you, 30,000 are undergoing some level of clinical care. That's the iceberg tip, isn't it? The real trans community is completely invisible. Nobody knows them. 8,000 have transitioned to live in their new gender. But this is conforming to this gender binary. This is saying, okay, if people accept me, the only way I can do it is if I pretend to be someone. I know I can never be a woman. I know I can never experience what it's like to be late. I can't have those experiences. And I have 50 years, which I enjoyed living as a man. But now I'm somewhere around the middle. 5,000 people have changed their gender legally. That we're talking, the visible trans community is the tip of the iceberg. And then we've got other people saying, what if I'm not male or female? What if I'm neither? Now cope with that one. Suddenly I can't say he, we can't say she. Oh, what do we do? Oh my God, I'm going to make a fool of myself. And everybody starts getting, I'm sitting in the loo at this Lee's Mind, Body, Spirit Festival. Suddenly I heard a voice come in. Well, all I can say is this, I think they shouldn't be allowed. In America, they've got separate toilets for them. I thought, oh, this is going to be interesting. One sits in the cubicle that side, one sits in the cubicle that side, and they're having this conversation about the rights of trans people, and I'm sitting in the middle thinking, well, did you see that one walking around here? I mean, you don't know what to say, do you? I thought, you're going to get embarrassed in a minute, darling. I walk out, I thought, no, I'm not going to leave. Washed my hands, and I just turned and stood and waited until they came out. I just wanted them to know. But this is the whole thing. It's just, what if I'm not male or female? How do we handle that? And that's what's going on now. If you've seen it, you may have heard of this. Piers Morgan can't stand the idea that people are not one or the other. You've got to be one or the other. And he rants on and rants on. This is Fox Fisher, a trans man who identifies as non-binary. They had a real head-to-head, but it's going on and on and on. Facebook got involved. They said, let's have a few more labels for people. And so they picked all these labels. If you go on Facebook, you can choose one of those. You can be cis male, you can be F2M, gender fluid. Oh, it's not all of them, there's a few more. You can be new-twi, you can be trans. There's still more. Okay. You can get all these. And I looked through this, I thought, they still missed out drag queens. They haven't got female impersonators. She-male, ladyboy, Hydra, they haven't got those in. Two spirits, Albanian sworn virgins, they were missed off the list. I can't even pronounce the word. This is the Polynesia, the Pacific Islands, Africa, the Oman, Philippines, Indonesia, and eunuchs. That's from the Bible. 3,000 years ago, we were talking about eunuchs. And if you just look at eunuchs compared to the description of Hydra in India, it's the same. Cultures have accepted trans people for thousands of years, and some of them, like North American Indians, had as many as 5 or 7 different genders. So I have to ask the question, how many genders are there? Well, pick one. Why not? Let's all have our own. See, gender is about how I present myself and how I present myself to the world so that I feel comfortable. It shouldn't be anything about what my body is. It's about how I feel comfortable. And that's the really important thing. Just be yourself. Be yourself and break the rules and say, no, this is it. I'm happy with this. And if you want to wear some glitzy, glammy stuff, if you want to do high heels, fine. If you want to be very macho and do the whole Rambo thing, fine. But just be yourself. This book influenced me a lot in the 1960s. John Powell said, why am I afraid to tell you who I am? In the book he said, I'm afraid to tell you who I am because if I tell you who I am and you don't like who I am, that's all I have. So we create masks. Mirrors, images of what we think you want us to be, instead of just being ourselves. And that's the incredible thing that we've got to do. Extraordinary moments have transformed my life. If I had taken that job in 1993, we wouldn't be here today. I'm sure the PSA would have happened, but it wouldn't have happened the way it did. It wouldn't have involved the same people that got involved. We would have missed that. I wouldn't have been trans. I wouldn't have done my degree. I wouldn't have published Sail Your Way to Success in 1993. I wouldn't have published the ABC of the World Wide Web in 1998. There are so many things. I wouldn't be with my partner at the moment, who I absolutely love. All of those things would not have happened. So I look back, do I regret missing that job? Absolutely no way. The life I have is one I love. And one poem helps me to understand this. It's a poem by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged near Yellowwood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveller. Long I stood and looked on one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair, and having perhaps a better claim, for it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as to that, the passing there had worn them really about the same, and each that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet, knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be saying this with a sigh, sometime ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in the wood, and I took the road less travelled by. And that made all the difference. Extraordinary moments are happening to you all the time. Embrace them. Explore them. Share them. And help me to change the world.